Good afternoon, everyone. I think you can imagine today is going to be quite busy with all the admin things. So I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Donald Robertson. I'm originally from Scotland. And as Brendan will hopefully back me up, Brendan, I do not have an accent, do I? See?
Nope, no accent.
No accent. You got to think of it from my perspective, and from my perspective, I do not have an accent. In fact, you lot have the accent, and if you're wondering what kind of accent, most of you have an American accent, and it doesn't matter really, because I think after a few days, it's just the funny way I talk, and you don't really pay much attention to it. What do I say? I say Z instead of Z, and I say J instead of J, and it was my language before it was yours, and so I am right and you're wrong, and that works perfectly for me. So we're going to have fun. I tell really bad jokes, and from time to time I do. It depends on how the mood takes me. I started teaching in August of 1980. That's when I started getting paid. And you're meant to say he doesn't look that old, even if he does. And so this is me entering my 42nd year of teaching. And it's still fun, go figure. So if you want to do a job that you like, and I'm a great believer in liking your job is first and making lots of money is second. And if you can do both, then you've nailed it. So I'm kind of lucky. So a little bit about me. What I'm going to do today is get all the admin stuff out of the way, because not everyone has taken the course, especially from me and the format that I use. So I think you want to feel a little bit more comfortable about how this is going to work. So we're going to do that. I'm going to go over the syllabus, show you what we have on Canvas, which is basically just resources to make your life easier. And then talk about WebAssign, which is how you're going to do pretty much all your assignments, all your homework and your tests, and talk about how that works. And then after that, we'll get started on our first topic, which is, once I got the heading here, is chapter 2.1, and we're going to deal with types of variables. That's kind of my goal. So let me, without further ado, get started. Let's put this on student view. Here we go. So hopefully you're all looking at what I'm looking at, which is our Canvas site, right? Now I'll go back one page. Here we go. Let's talk about what's on Canvas. What on earth, excuse me. I guess being the last class, if I'm going to screw up, this should be the one I should do it with. There, okay. Now I'll go back into student view. This is the student view I was hoping you would see, and now you will see it. All right. And it has got a number of modules in it. There we go. So if you click on the top one, what you'll get here is a welcome. It tells you a little bit about myself in Scotland. There's some really cute videos in there. If you're not sure of Zoom, you would use this, but the fact you're all here, I think that's mute now. There's our officer. Officers 10 a.m. every day. If that doesn't suit you, you email me, and I'll figure out some time that suits both of our schedules. Because my schedule, the way it is this year, is very heavy in the day, it will have to be an afternoon time. It could simply just be after this class, for instance. That would work really well for both of us. If you click on this one, hopefully I have got the correct link. Evidently I had the wrong link in the syllabus, but I fixed that. Here's something that you will need to know, and it's how do you enroll in WebAssign? And this is the class code. It's called the class key. And you get in and you get 1 week kind of free trial where you don't need to fork out any money, and that's probably a good idea. The course doesn't work for you if you think it's just too much work, too much going on in your life. At least you haven't forked out the money, right? But at the end of the week, you're going to pay it. And this basically takes you through the instructions that you need to do to get into the class. WebAssign is owned and it's kind of done by Cengage, and essentially it's an online platform where all your homework and the ebook, everything you need as far as that side goes, is in WebAssign, right? So you don't need to buy a textbook, so that's something, right? Because you have to fork out money to get in. And if I click on this one, what this gives you is how the class is going to be organized. And it's going to be organized in weekly chunks. So week 1, this week, these are the assignments that you're going to get done. And they're due on midnight of Sunday. And then week 2, you're going to do these guys. And week 3, you're going to do these guys. And then there's going to be a test, and it's going to happen during class time. And the test will be on WebAssign, and it will be called Test 1. And you will do it just like you do homework, right? You put in the answers into all that stuff. The only difference is that you will send me any working that you might have for those questions that need it. Then week 4, 5, and 6, you do these topics, and then you do a test. Week 7, 8, and 9, and then a test. Week 10 and 11 are kind of bunched together because Thanksgiving and so on is in this chunk. So it doesn't make sense to make it a week. There'd only be 2 days in one of them because of that. So 10 and 11, which means that you actually have 2 weeks, because Thanksgiving is in the way. So you don't want to have, you know, when you've got family trying to do homework, it doesn't seem fair. And then you have a Monday, which is a review for the final. And then our final exam, which is on Friday. So that's kind of how the course is going to work. Every one of these sections that you see here is on WebAssign. Not visible to you, because if I put them all on it, it would just scare the EBGBs out of you. So I only put the ones that you need to know, and you'll see later. Any questions so far? Right. It's a bit like you turn up to class, right? You do your stuff. Well, you just turn up to Zoom and we'll do our stuff, right? And then just like in class, wouldn't you go home and do your homework in paper? Well, here you stay at home and you do it online. And you'll probably use some paper and get some of the answers anyway, but I wouldn't necessarily say that. So let's look at the syllabus. That's my email address, so that's a good one that you can use to contact me. And then I have this spiel here. WebAssign has some very interesting features which I wish it didn't. It has buttons like ask your professor, ask for an extension, and I can't remember what the other ones, but there's various buttons in WebAssign which sound like you click on them and type things in and I get the information. I do not get that information. Do not use those buttons. If you want help from your professor, if you want to ask for an extension to your homework so you can get more time to do it, you just shoot me an email and I can help you that way, right? So can I emphasize that? Do not use WebAssign. You'll think everything's cool. You'll say, I need help with question 4. And 5 days later, there's not a reply from me. And you're going to get really frustrated and saying, he's not even answering my emails. I asked him for help and it didn't happen. If you send me an email, I will answer it, right? But if you hit any buttons on WebAssign, it goes somewhere weird. It goes into the ether and disappears. But wherever it goes, it doesn't come to me. Okay? So putting that out there. Here is the office hour link. If that doesn't work for you, then as I said earlier, you contact me and we'll figure out a different time. Here's all the tech that you need. Some of you look like you better get some videos so I can see you, Chal, for example. If you have technology issues, you can always contact the IT people and they will give you out loaners. Thank you, Charles. So you can get loaners, you know, and borrow them for the quarter. I don't think they charge anything, which is kind of cool. But they're limited, so you better make sure you get in quick before they all go. And there's your link, I believe, for the free resources. You don't need a textbook separate unless you want to buy one. Some people physically, I actually have one because I'm old fashioned. I like a book and turn pages, but it's online as an ebook, so you don't need to buy one. This is the class key that you need to get into the class. And then, well, I know at least 8 people. The last time I looked, which was last night, there was 8. Hopefully there are a lot more, have already signed up. The ones that signed up, did it go smoothly? Was it what you, did it do what it said it did and now you're in? Can I see a nod or a no? There must be somebody in this class that did it.
I just signed in.
And okay?
Yep, everything works.
Right, so there are no hiccups there. So follow instructions and you are good to go. Right, what I have here is a list of important dates. I'm not going to go through every single one of them. You all know how to look things up. But it tells you, for instance, these funny yellowy coloured ones are holidays. The green ones are our tests and the final exam. And the others are things like last day to withdraw and all sorts of things. So there's a kind of everything you need to know in one place. Here are all the courses. We talked about them, right? Learning objectives. This is basically what you're going to find when you finish this class. And this one is don't cheat. This one is, do you have accommodations that I need to do? And we'll pause for a minute and look at this fella. This is how you are graded. This is where all the points. 20% is participation. This class is compulsory. You must come to class. Just like on ground, you must turn up, right? And how this is going to work is that 20% of your grade is for turning up. And we are now going to officially do attendance. And how you're going to do that is you're going to go to chat and you're just going to say hi or hello. And then I look at it and I get your attendance. So do that right now. Say hi or hello or dos vidania or whatever you want. And I can see them coming through, which is good. So somebody already said something, so that must mean 23 of you are here. Now that was pretty easy for me to, I can then go looking for who's not here. And that's attendance. Now, life is life. I understand that you're not always going to be here. Your kid catches the flu, you have to go to the dentist. Your car breaks down, you don't get home in time, whatever. So what you will be doing is that every video, every Zoom meeting, every Zoom lesson is on video and it will be put on Canvas. So you'll go to Canvas, you'll be able to find it and watch it. And that's how you'll catch up if you missed a day, which is kind of better because if you were on ground, if you missed a day, wouldn't you just have to go and look at the textbook and try and figure out the best way you could? At least now you get to see the lesson that you would have seen if you were in, you know, here. That's going to affect your grade if you miss too many days. So try not to lose too many. 20% is a big chunk. You don't want to lose too much of this. But things happen, and I understand that. And that's what that is saying. Right, homework is on WebAssign, and that is going to be worth 30% of your grade. And I've mentioned there, don't ask for an extension. Right? Just say to me in an email you want them. I think Catherine just appeared. Catherine, do you want to say hi so I can give you attendance?
Hello.
Hi. So in chat, type hi. Class tests, right? There are 3 of them, as you know. And the good news is the worst one gets kicked out. So if you have a real stinker of a test, it won't affect your grade because I throw it away. So only 2 count. So do good on all 3. But final exam Friday. Final exam is from 1 to 4. It will be mostly on WebAssign. The difference here is that you send me your working. For those questions, you do working. There's a lot of questions you can't show me working because it's all done, WebAssign using Salt and so on. But for those you can, you do. Extra credit now. This particular quarter, extra credit is going to be given for homework assignments that you complete on time. So all you need to do here is do your homework after each week, right, by midnight on Sunday. And if you do it, you get 0.5%. So what happens if you need an extension, right? Things got on top of you that week, you just didn't get it done. You just send me an email and I will give you another week. You've got 2 weeks to do it rather than 1. All that will happen then is that you won't get the 0.5% extra credit because you didn't finish it on time. So what I'm doing here is you get a carrot, not the stick. For doing it on time, you get 0.5%. If you don't do it in time, you don't lose anything out of it. But there is a kind of rule to that. I don't keep giving you extensions to the end of the quarter. You get an extension for each one and you get 1 week. If you haven't done it by that week, it's over with. If you can't do it in 2 weeks, your life is too busy and you really probably should be considering not taking the class until things settle down. But you can have an extension for each week, but all you will get is 1 week extra for each assignment. So I guess you could have a rolling assignment of being a week behind all the way to the end. But if you did that, you'd lose 2.5%. Or no, you wouldn't, you'd lose 5%. But losing is maybe the wrong word. You won't gain 5%. That's a better way of phrasing it. And there's your grade, and there's your letter, extra help, and all the other good stuff. I think the only thing I need to say here is the obvious ones. Do not do your homework at 9 p.m. on a Sunday and think you're going to be finished. You probably won't. And even if you are, you're probably not learning. It's just quick. Every question that you do, you get 5 shots. So it's not like, it's a hit or a miss, right? You get chances to do it again. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Is there any questions about the syllabus? We feel comfortable, at least if you've missed any, you can go back and read it. I think it's all there.
I have one quick question. If we come in late, are we still able to, come into the meeting?
Sure. I might not catch you early. It's not that I'm ignoring you, but once the lesson starts, I have so many screens open that I might not catch you until even later. But as long as you made the attempt to come in, I can tell when you enter the waiting room, so I'll know how long. I mean, there does come a point in time where you weren't really here. So if you turn up for the last 5 minutes, you're not here, right? But I mean, if you're 5-10 minutes, we'll be okay with that. You should know in the chat if I've taken attendance, because won't there be a whole load of highs? And so you will just say hi, because you missed the attendance. I do the attendance whenever I remember, in the middle, at the start, at the end, so it could happen anytime. Any other questions? That was a good question. Is that Abra?
Abra, like abracadabra.
Abracadabra.
Yeah.
I can remember that. Abra. Gotcha. Right. Any other questions before we go to Zoom? Before we go to WebAssign, I should say. Okay. Here's WebAssign. Yep, I believe that's our class. Let's do student view. Yeah, this is what you will see, WebAssign. If I scroll down to the bottom, see your textbook. You can hit that and it's just an ebook. If you look carefully, can you see that these 3 guys are due this Sunday and then these 3 are due the following Sunday? You only need to get these 3 done by this Sunday. The reason I've got the extra 3 in is that some people like working ahead because they know next week's going to be really busy. So if they get the homework out of the way, things make, your English project doesn't get in the way, right? Whatever. I don't put all of them in because that would just be overwhelming, right? So when this week's finished, these 3 will be there, and then week 3's homework will appear, right? So you'll get to see what's due and what's due the following week. And I think that's probably a good compromise. Let's click on one and click on types of variable, even if you might not know what they are yet. This is kind of how WebAssign works. Right. You get a whole load of questions, and they give you answers. Some answers are, it's that guy, or it's that guy. You then hit submit answer. And if you want to read about it, because you're not sure what categorical and quantitative is, you would hit that and it would take you to the ebook. And this is risky because I know when you're inside Zoom, weird things happen. I'm going to click that and see what happens. Okay, it looks like it's loading up. It looks like it's turning data into information. And there you go. And see, it gives you kind of a little description of it. That would probably help. It's a very simple question. And then when you're happy, you hit submit answer. And you get 5 answers, 5 shots. Now, for some of these questions, you could just hit the wrong one and then hit the other one and not pay a blind bit of attention to learning anything. You're just getting the homework points. Homework doesn't care how many shots it took to get the right answer as long as it's 5 or less. So I won't even know how many shots you've had at it. But if you do a test question and all you did is hit yes or no, do you know what's going to happen now? You don't know the right answer. And so you're going to get caught there. So make sure that you actually understand the answer and you're happy and you know you got it right for the right reasons. Not, well, there's 3 choices. I'll pick the first one. If that's wrong, I'll pick the second one. If it's that wrong, right, it's the third one, I'm right. Hey, I got the points. Don't do that. It's not a good learning technique. There are 2 reasons you should do homework. The first one is actually a check that you understand the work. Because we will do stuff in class and you will say, yeah, that makes sense to me. I think I know what categorical and what quantitative looks like. And then you get a homework question and then you go, oh, I don't know. See, it's a way of you finding out. Maybe you need to, study a bit more, look at it, read the ebook bit, see what's going on there. And the second reason for doing homework is practice. I've said this to all my classes today, but it's a good analogy. Do you know you never get good at playing a violin by watching someone else play a violin? Right? I'm playing the violin. I'm writing down how things are and what I would do to get the answer. But don't you really understand something when you do it? So homework is its main job, really, in my opinion anyway, is practice. Like you practice to get good at violin, you practice to get good at statistics. It gives you different kinds of questions, different nuances to the same idea so that you get a better feeling for what the concept's about. So it's practice. So you shouldn't take any shortcuts to get the right answer because then you're not benefiting, right? So if you hit it and it's wrong, read about it. Oh God, yeah, I got them mixed up. I thought quantitative was this and categorical was that. Sometimes when there's 2 definitions, you mix them up. Okay, yeah, that was me. I know it. I can hit the answer now. I'm happy. That's what we do. Now, you're going to get eventually, I know this one is probably a bad example of that, but eventually you're going to get questions that involve numbers and involving things called salt, right? And so you would, if you hit that button, I don't know, sometimes I have to go out and in. Do you see a frequency table here? Right. So that's the guy. Now, if you went and you looked at this, do you see how there's lots of things at the top? If you hit that one, if you hit this one, and what do I want? I want to select wear seatbelts. And there, I've just made a relative frequency. And do you see at the bottom? All those nice decimals? These are called relative frequencies. Now, if I go back here, they talk to you about what percentage. I would tell you this, although you don't know it. A relative frequency and a percent are the same thing. A relative frequency is 0.12. A percent is just 0.12 turned into percent. right? So if you looked at that answer table there, do you see how this guy here is 0.0401? See that decimal? Right, when I was going here, then if that was the question, that would be 0.04, and that would be 4.01%. And do you see here, it says to 2 decimal places, and you see how that matches perfectly with what I've got. Now, you don't in this question need salt. Most of the time you do. If I wanted to do that by hand, wouldn't I just take 101, divide it by this number, right? And then multiply it by 100, and that would get me %. And that's probably how I would show you in class. Now, if you type in the right answer, which I hope that's the correct question, when you hit submit, well, that's because I probably didn't answer the right question. What person said they always wear a seatbelt? So the always was that one, right? So let me go and check that one. The always was this number. Right? So what's that? 56.73. So you just go back and you say, oh, darn it. 56 point. It was the wrong guy. They wanted the 12th grade and I thought it was another. And then you type in your answer and you go submit. And am I good or am I good? You see, I just got that question right. Now you see the benefit of having 5 guesses. Well, guesses wrong. 5 attempts. If you get it wrong, do you see the first thing I did is, oh yeah, I read the question wrong. Go back and get the answer, right? And fix it. And you know one of those pictures I showed? Let's see if it's still there. Do you see that guy there? It's a bit hard to see because it's kind of doesn't quite fit. There it is. One of these pictures is that same guy. Right? And when it's a question like that, you see, you just pick the little dot for it, if that was the right picture. And that's how you choose graphs. Are you comfortable about the gist of how you do WebAssign, right? You type in numbers, you pick pictures, you have 3 dots, one is the right answer. Oh, by the way, be careful. Some of the questions, more than one of the choices is correct. So there could be 2 correct answers, right? You know, what are the most important things that make this true? And sample size is correct and unbiased question is correct. So sometimes there might be 4 choices, but it's not one choice. It might be 2 choices out of the 4 that you pick, right? So read the question to see whether it's one or more multiple choices. And I am ready to leave that one. Any questions about WebAssign now? We feel good? Hey, we're ready to start the first lesson now. Let's get this show on the road. Well, our first topic is going to be from chapter 2. Okay, is everybody here able to read chapter 2? Because I know what I can see might not be your screen. Sometimes they cut the top off, sometimes they cut the bottom. Some people tell me that they can't always see the sides.
It looks great. It's in the frame and everything. You can see the words nicely too.
Oh, perfect. Is that it for everyone? Yeah. This is one reason you should never do this class on a phone. I mean, it's just too tiny, right? You should never try and do your WebAssign on your cell phone. Can you imagine how hard it would be just to see the darn thing, far less do the questions? So you kind of need, you know, a screen that's doing it. So we are going to look at types of variables. And we certainly will. And there are going to be 2 major types of data, types of variable. The first one is going to be called categorical. And the second kind of data is going to be called quantitative. But before we officially start, let me give you a little story that kind of explains what I want you to get out of this class. It's an introduction to statistics, so you can't expect to get too deep into the weeds, right? You're going to get to see the basic framework of how statistics work. And one of the things I want you to be really good at is to understand when you're given information. That's all data is, right? Given numerical information typically. But you know how to look at that data and decide, is that all the information that I need to make an intelligent, informed decision? So here's my made up story. You probably didn't know this because it's a made up story, but do you know that Seattle Police do not like Scottish people? Didn't know that, did you? Well, politician goes out and he goes in the news and he goes in the radio and he goes in the TV and he gets lots of people to watch him, which is what politicians like. And he says this statement. And his evidence is that only 2% of Seattle Police, SB, are Scottish. Now, if you look at that superficially, you might think, yeah, that's tiny. 1 in 50 policemen in Seattle are Scottish. They can't like Scottish people. They don't hire them. Terrible. Yeah, they're racist. They don't like Scottish people. They don't like that race. I guess you might say Scottish isn't a race, but I consider it a race. I'm Celtic, and it's a race for me. So that's the evidence. Now, you might be looking at that and say, yeah, but that's not evidence. There's something big that's missing from this story before that becomes evidence. What other thing, just one more piece of information do I need to make sense of that?
You probably also want to know the percent of the total population that are Scottish.
Exactly. Doesn't that make sense? There could be 3 versions of this story. First version, 0.1% of Seattle are actually Scottish. But 2% are in the police force. Wouldn't that be actually evidence for the total opposite? Why are they hiring so many Scottish people? There's almost nobody in Seattle who's Scottish, and the ones that are all in the police force. How on earth did that happen? Isn't that kind of evidence now that you see both numbers? Now, the second story is 2% of Seattle is Scottish. Isn't that exactly what you should expect? Right? If 8% are French and 14% are Asian or whatever it is, right? Whatever grouping you decide you're going to measure. If the entire population is that same number or thereabouts, wouldn't that be good evidence that nothing particular weird is going on? That's what you'd expect to see. We got a problem with this last one, don't we? 20% of Seattle is Scottish, but only 2% get on the police force. What on earth is going on here? Isn't that evidence that there's something not very nice going on as far as who gets into the police force? So when you talk about things like one piece of information and somebody extrapolates, that's just a fancy word for saying they take it one step further. Don't we have to be very wary about that one step further? How one piece of data is not normally enough for you to make an intelligent, informed decision about what that piece of information means. Do you see my 3 little stories make a big difference to that one piece of information? Now, if you think about it, don't politicians only tend to tell you that one? And maybe what they're telling you is true. I'm not saying it's, you know, everything they say is a lie, because if that was the case, then nothing would be true, because the other politician says the exact opposite of whatever the first politician says, right? So one of them's probably telling the truth. The problem we have to figure out is which one it is, right? So don't you need all the information before you start making up an informed decision? So that's one of my goals, for you to be able to look at data and say to yourself, is that enough to make a decision, or is there something else I would want to know? Are we cool on that? Does that idea make sense to you, what I'm trying to get across? Right. So we've got to start somewhere. And like everything else, isn't there a whole vocabulary and a structure to all sciences, including statistics? And the first thing we're going to look at in statistics is types of variable. We also call that data. And types of data. When you collect information, it boils into 2 groups. The first group is quantitative. And quantitative is when you collect data and it's numbers. So you could have number of children in your family. That would be quantitative, right? I've got 4 children in my family. They've got, you know, we don't have any children. There's 0 children in my family. You could collect the data on the height of 100 people. You could collect data on the weight, right? How much each, you know, 100 people weigh. You could collect data on their salary. And you could collect data on, oh, you tell me. I'm running short of ideas. Give me something else you could collect that you would say the data is numbers, it's quantitative.
Age.
Yeah, that would work. One more. Anybody?
Number of cats in a household.
Wow, okay. How many cats do you have, if you want to share?
3.
That's a good number. We have 1 dog. So these are all numbers. Would you agree that your 4 children, you're 82 inches tall, you weigh 300 pounds, you make 4,000 a month salary, right? You're 42 years old. Oh, and your black cat just appeared. That's Eric's. And the number of cats in your family or your household. Well, our dog is our fur baby, so they are in your family, our family. Now, what does categorical do? Well, categorical is data that is essentially not numbers. So you could say to someone, what's your favorite color? And yes, U is in the word color. How the Americans dropped it is because you can't spell. So I tell you that. You could ask them what their favorite TV show is. You could ask them which country in the world they would love to visit. You could ask them the month they were born. You could ask them, what else could you ask them? You could ask them the day of the week they were born. If it was high school students, you could ask them, what could you ask them? Whether they're sophomore, junior, senior, right? That kind of thing. Okay, chuck some more categoricals as. I want 2 more. You collect data and it's categorical data. It's not numbers, right? It's something else.
If
Types
they
of
like
pets.
Abra, what did you say?
I said types of pets.
Oh yeah, you could say, you know, what kind of pets you got? I'll just say pets for short. One more.
I was just
Paige.
gonna say,
Yeah. Where are you going, Paige?
I was gonna say like your favorite type of animal.
Oh, okay. Well, we kind of count that one in that, but that's definitely correct. And another one?
A mood, like how you're feeling.
Oh, how you're feeling, right? So from grumpy to, you know, living the dream or whatever else. Right. So can you see that statistics collects information, data on almost anything. Anything you can ask someone could eventually be put into a category, right? Categorical data, right? And that's the first level. Now, categorical data is split into two subgroups. Yes, it's categorical, but it belongs in two groups. The first one's called ordinal, and the second one is called not ordinal. Not very original, but never mind. Ordinal categorical data is categorical data that you can put into some kind of order. Right? I'll give you an example. I did this with mother class and I still can't remember. I know it goes junior, senior, freshman, that is freshman, right? Suppose you went to a high school and you asked the students there, you know, random selection, 100 students, and said, what are you? And the answers you'd get back, I'm a junior, I'm a senior, I'm a sophomore, I'm a junior, right? All the different students, you get different answers. Would you agree that these have a natural order, right? Freshman before sophomore, before junior, before senior. Does that make sense? I hope I got it the right way around. Can you see that would be an example of ordinal? Okay, so check that one off the list. Here's my little list again. Can you see another one in this list that would count in the ordinal category, the ordinal subgroup?
Month.
I agree. If you ask someone what month were you born in, wouldn't it go January, February, March, April, all the way to December? Doesn't have a natural order to it. And that would count as ordinal. Okay. Suppose you ask them what day they were born, right? Were you born on a Tuesday? Were you born on a Friday? Would that count as ordinal? I agree. So I'm going to put a circle around those two. There is one more in the list that doesn't have a circle that I would put in the ordinal category.
Country.
Say again?
Country.
Country? Oh, interesting. How are you going to order them? If you give me a good way to do it, I would agree with you.
Which country?
Ah, okay. So I probably wouldn't do it for that. One of the things you have to avoid in categorical is, couldn't you put almost everything in alphabetical order? But we don't allow that because, well, if we did that, we wouldn't have two groups for starters. And we want to somehow separate the data into two meaningful groups. The one I'm picking is mood. And you might think, well, how on earth can you put that in order? They do that a lot. Don't they have a very often a 5-point scale? And on the first point, it's, I'm really depressed. That's number one. And then number two is, I'm depressed. And then number three is, I'm okay. And number four is, I'm feeling good. And number five is, I'm living the dream. Can you see that there would be a kind of natural scale from really feeling horrible to really feeling good? That would be how I would maybe organize this question about the mood. Because if you ask people just to tell you in a sentence, it's very hard to do much with that data. But see if you can put it in a scale of 1 to 5, which is called the Likert scale. They use that a lot. Do you know a lot of polls use that scale? For instance, see if you ask people, how do you think the government is doing a good job? Do you think the government is doing a good job, right? At the first scale, it would be, no, they're terrible at it. 2 would be, they're bad at it. 3 is, so-so. 4 is, they're doing good. 5 is, they're doing great. You know how that kind of scale from horrible to good you can use, and 5 tends to be the kind of going number. 3 is not enough, and 7 is kind of too many, right? So they kind of plop in the 5 side. Now, the ones that I would consider not to be ordinal or colour, red, blue, green. Now you could say, well, put in alphabetical order. Remember my rule, alphabetical order doesn't count, right? That's the only time you don't use it. Would you agree that red, blue and green, which one of them should be first, second and third? Do you agree there's no natural order to?
What about if you go based
There
off of
is
the
an
rainbow?
order.
Now
Yeah,
if you go
rainbow
based
order.
off the rainbow, I would put it into ordinal. So that is a really good thing. But suppose you get colours that aren't in the rainbow, then I would have to go to the ordinal. So if I went and said to you, what from the colours of the rainbow is your favourite colour, then I would put it in the ordinal category, right? But if I just said, what's your favourite colour? And people said pink, I don't think that's in the rainbow, is it? The spectrum.
It's in the red family.
Okay, you're just making my life hard, aren't you? Okay. I'm going to get one of my pet peeves out of the way. This is not Abra's fault, but she's the one that started it, so it is. Going to be completely sexist because I am, and I'm too old to change my ways. But true story, as far as I'm concerned, women or self-identified females know colours much better than males or self-identified males. If I gave 200 females and 200 males a piece of paper and I gave them a minute to write down the names of colours, some of those women would be wanting another piece of paper. And some of those guys, after red, blue and green, would be thinking really hard. If I say to if my wife says, if I say, I want a t-shirt, and my wife says, well, get one. I say, what colour do you want? She might say something like, get the chartreuse one. Like, what the heck is chartreuse? Or burgundy? Or mauve? Or, shows you how long I've been married. I'm picking up these colours now. I don't know what the colours are. So Abra is a perfect example when she went and said, it's in the red family. There's no such thing as the red family. There's red and there's blue, and pink is its own colour. It ain't in anybody's family. So in my world, it's not ordinal. In your world, I guess it belongs over here again, right? So there is a little bit of flexibility in some situations, but we will try and avoid too many of them. Would you agree that country is definitely going to be in that list of not ordinal? Your favourite TV show, unless we get kind of creative, is also in there. And colour, if it's just any colour in the world and it's a guy you're asking, belongs in the not ordinal. So I'm putting it here. Now I'm going to give you a hard question, because it's quite hard to do some of these because you've just met the concept. Something that's not being used. Can anybody come up with another ordinal? It's hard because I'm thinking and none's coming to my mind. Come on, 15 seconds more and then I'm going to have to give up because I can't think of one. Come on.
You could do like zodiac signs, but I guess that's kind of like birth month.
But that's okay. It's a different thing, right? Sagittarius. Yeah. You got it. I like it. We got one. I'll just call it signs. B signs, birth signs. Now, the easy one to me is not ordinal. Isn't it much easier to find something that doesn't have an order to it, right? So anything you like, chuck one at me. This one's dead easy. I can think of lots.
What about like the dream vacation one that someone said earlier? Because that could be like anywhere, right?
Yeah, and there's no particular, you know,
Yeah.
why is Barbados better than Switzerland, right? Apart from alphabetic, which we kick out. Are we comfortable about what is categorical, what is ordinal, and what is not ordinal, right? Do you feel good about those kinds of categories? We are, I like that. So, because I'm running short of room, I was going to squeeze it here, but I'll do it over here on the new page. We're going to look at quantitative, right? And it's going to branch. Got my little list. Where's my little list? Continuous is very common. This word discrete has other names that are used, but I'm using discrete right now. And we'll look at other words when they appear. Numbers can be continuous or they can be discrete. Continuous, well, let's do discrete first. Discrete are easier to describe. Data is discrete when it can only take fixed values. So an example of discrete data would be number of children in your family. Right, there's no children. We don't have any children. We have 2 children in our family. We have 4, right? That would be discrete. The number of coins in your pocket. Would you agree? You've got 3 coins, you've got 5 coins in your pocket, you've got 0 coins in your pocket. That would be discrete, right? How about something else that's discrete? Lots. No, I can't think of any.
How many
Age?
cups of coffee you've had today?
Yeah, how many cups of coffee? That'll do. Now, those 3, and we'll probably come up with some others once my brain gets to it, is discrete. And the reason for that is that you only have 0, 1, 2 children, right? You don't, it doesn't make sense. It's not realistic to say I've got 1.5 children in my family. Would you agree? People don't say that because it's not true. Right? Great. Couldn't you say I've got 5 coins in my pocket? I've got 6 coins in my pocket. You would never say I've 6.12 coins. Coffee is a little bit harder, but let's just make life simple that you might not drink it all, but at least you were given it, right? So I was given 3 cups of coffee, I was given 5 cups of coffee, and we'll just count that one as that's how we're mentioning it. Now, continuous, on the other hand, that would be data where you get numbers, but you can also get the numbers between them. I'll give you an example of that. Because someone mentioned it, and they said age, and they were going to mention it under the discrete, and I know why they said that. You ask someone their age and they'll say they're 51 or they're 52 or whatever their age is. We tend to tell our age by whole numbers. But technically speaking, and we have to be kind of lawyer-esque here, if I asked you what's your accurate real age, you might not be 14 and you might not be 15. Couldn't you be 14 point, if I turned it into a decimal, 14.1234? If I wanted to do it, it would be 14, 3 months, 2 days, 17 minutes, 14.123456 seconds. Theoretically, couldn't you be any number between 14 and 15? That's what makes it continuous. If I asked you for your height, sure, you could be 60 inches. Surely you could be 61, but couldn't you also be 60.123 inches? Couldn't you be any number between 60 and 61? And that's what you should ask yourself. Pick 2 numbers, one after the other, and say, could I be anything between those 2 numbers? Right. Children, 5 children, 6 children. That's it. No space in between. You can't have 5.1 children. 4 coins, 5 coins. That's it. 3 cups of coffee, 4 cups of coffee. We're pretending that's how many you're given. End of the same. Would you agree height is continuous? Isn't your weight continuous? Are we comfortable about the distinguishing between discrete numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, and nothing else, and continuous numbers, 1, 2, 3, but also 1.1 and 2.4 and 3.5678? Okay, same kind of question as before. Give me a discrete variable, a discrete data.
Number of picture frames you have in your house.
Why not? Give me one more. Discrete.
How many
Salary.
cars?
Oh. Okay, let's look continuous. Give me a continuous one.
Money?
Ooh, that's, you know, I'm putting money depends kind of in the middle here. I'll come back to money. I like money. I'm just writing this down to remind myself to talk about it, but I'm not going to put in a category yet. So think of another continuous one.
Distance?
Why not? Would you agree something's 2 miles away, something's 3 miles away, but could something be 2.12345 miles away if you were being really, really accurate about it? Paige, what you got?
Salary?
And we have salary. Salary and money I'm going to put in the same box. And I'll explain why after this next one.
Temperature?
I didn't catch that one.
Temperature?
It must be your speaker, but it's also my ears.
I said temperature.
Oh, well done. I gotcha. And I agree with you. Would you agree it could be 14 degrees or, well, let's make it warmer. It could be 71 or 72, but couldn't it be 71.12 degrees if you wanted to be really accurate? In fact, if you're doing chemistry experiments, don't you use digital thermometers? And I don't know how accurate they are, but don't they get pretty detailed if you really had to? So what about this money salary thing? Because salary and money are kind of the same kind of problem. It's one of those gray areas. It depends on how you want to describe your salary. So I'm going to give two different arguments and put it in both categories. And it depends on how the money is described. If I say the money is described as money that you've got in the bank, right? Let's say that as an example of that question, right? Money you have in the bank. I am going to put that here. And I'll give you an example of that. I have $171.13 in my bank account. Wouldn't that be an example of the kind of data you would get back if I went and said to all of you, tell me how much you've got in your checking account, right? That's the kind of number you'd come back, right? Now, somebody else, by sheer coincidence, has that in the bank, right? Just for argument's sake. Is it possible for somebody to have a number between these two? No. You can't have 171.13. Isn't that 13 cents the end of the line as far as banks and human beings are concerned? As physical money you can put in your hand and be given. If you say, I'm cashing out my money, give me it. Wouldn't you get that number or that number? The bank wouldn't suddenly say, there's this new coin you've never heard about, and it allows you to get 13.822 cents, and here it is, right? You see, that doesn't work when you do that. So if I think of money in that way, do you see why it belongs in the discrete world? Two consecutive numbers, but nothing left in between. The fact that the consecutive numbers happen to be decimals is a little bit distracting. But if I change them into pennies, wouldn't that be whole numbers? And so it would kind of fit the rest. So let me argue now on the other side. And this time I'm going to do money as in at the petrol, that you go to a petrol station and the cost of gasoline. And it might cost $3.99.9. and it might cost $4. Have you ever seen the petrol stations do that 99.9 cents thing? If you do that, theoretically then, isn't it possible that you could just continue that for as many decimal places as you like? I've never seen a garage in my life do this, but theoretically, couldn't they say $3.999987 because they like 87 at the end because they wanted it? Now, if you do it that way, theoretically, can't you have any number between these two? Now, the good news is we will never do that to you. We will give you questions which should fall very, very clearly into one or other camp and not the grey area ones, right? But it is helpful to realize that there can be grey areas, isn't there? Nothing is all, not every single set of data is guaranteed in one or the other. Doesn't some of the grey area ones be, well, what do you mean when you say color, right? Do you mean colors in a rainbow or do you mean colors, right? That kind of thing. What do you mean when you say money? Do you mean money that you can physically hold, or do you mean money as stock exchange might do? I can imagine stock exchanging having some really weird decimals because people buy billions of stocks, don't they, sometimes? So you can have weird decimals and it still can make sense. Any questions about our breakdown of the types of data and the categories that they fall into? We good? I think it's time we had a look at some homework questions then, just to get a feel for how these things work. And also it gives me a chance to see what I may or may not have missed. Oh, wait a minute, do we need a joke? We should have a joke first. Barbara, should we have a joke? Isabel's saying yes, so I'm going with it, right? It doesn't take much to get me. So what joke shall I tell you? Well, I like Scottish jokes, so I'm going to start you off with one of my favourites. I should warn you, by the end of the 11 weeks, you'll be used to me. But Scottish jokes, or at least the ones I know, have a very common theme. Somebody tends to get killed or hurt in them. That's just the humour that we have. So this Scotsman and his wife came to America on their 50th wedding anniversary as a special treat. And they go to the state fair. And while they're at the state fair, they see this very old aircraft, you know, the kind of open-ended ones where you sit in the air, you wear the goggles, one of them. And it was a pilot at the front and 2 seats behind him. And he was watching this and he took people up and he flew, you know, a couple of minutes around the state fair and you saw it from there. And then he landed. And he said to his wife, that looks real fun. I think we should do it. So the Scots guy goes over to the pilot and said, how much would it cost? And says, it's $100 each for you and your wife. And the Scotsman says, no, that's too much money. I'm not paying that. And he says, come on, make me a deal. Well, the pilot looks around and there's nobody else waiting to get on the plane. And he thought, well, better get something rather than nothing. And so he says to the Scotsman, okay, I'll make you a deal. It's just $100 for both of you. But if I hear one shout or a scream or any kind of noise, I want my full $200. So they shake on it. Scotsman says, you're on. It's a deal. And the pilot gets into the front and Scotsman gets in next and his wife gets in behind him and he takes off and he's doing what he does. He's circling around and he's about halfway through the flight and the pilot's thinking, nah, I want all my money. I'm not going to settle for half. So he thinks, I'm going to make him shout or scream. I'm going to make it happen. So he starts doing crazy things. He heads towards a mountain and at the last minute he veers off. Nothing, not a squeak. And he zooms towards the ground like they're going to crash and at the last minute levels off. Silence, nothing. And he loops a loop and he flies upside down and still nothing. So he gives up. And he lands the aircraft and Scots guy gets out and the pilot goes out and pilot goes over and says, well, a deal's a deal, and he gets his $100. And then the pilot looks at the Scotsman and he said, It must have been really difficult for you to keep quiet. I tried my best to make you scream. And the Scotsman nodded and said, you know, you're right, it was really hard. I almost screamed when the wife fell out. Eric, you're smiling like you enjoyed that joke. Oh,
Of course, I
Paige,
enjoyed that joke.
sorry?
Of course, I enjoyed the joke.
Oh, okay. I'm looking at some of your faces, and some of you were trying to pretend not to smile, but you really did think it was funny. And I think others were still trying to find the humor in this joke. Everyone has different opinions of jokes. Okay, I believe we're ready to get started. I've forgotten what the heck we're doing. Which is another of my fatal flaws, is I'm easily distracted. Okay, so let's look at some questions. The first question is, for the following variables, you could switch the word data in here, indicate whether it's categorical or quantitative. Right, so you ask people the importance of religion, and their answers are very, somewhat, or not very important. So that's the kind of answers that you get, right? Which one of those two is that guy? Number one, fingers, perfect. Would you agree? And just because I want to, because I like getting ticks, I'm going to hit submit. And okay, there it is. Now, they didn't ask it in this question, but I'm going to ask it. Not only is this guy categorical, let's see if we can split it up. Is this one ordinal or not ordinal? Which is it this? Ordinal or not ordinal? I see fingers. Fingers will do. Would you agree it's ordinal? Isn't there an order to it? Very, somewhat, or not very? Could you switch the order? Yeah, it's okay. Couldn't have said not very, somewhat, and very? And that order would also make sense, right? I don't care if the order goes up or the order comes down, whatever up and down means. It just has to have a natural progression. Kind of cool question. But you see, the way I've asked it, haven't we at least understood something rather than, the first one's wrong, I'll guess the second one, right? Back to don't guess. Let's look at 3. For each of the following, indicate whether the variable is ordinal or not. Okay. If the variable is not ordinal, indicate its variable type. Oh, okay. You ask someone their opinion on a new tax law and they say they favour or they oppose it. Is it ordinal? I see a shaking the head. Is that because there's only 2 choices? Well, let's try it. Variable is ordinal. Let's see what this one says then. Now, you might say favour or oppose, and that there's 2 choices. And I think this is a grey area one, because there is a kind of order to those 2, isn't there? But I guess you need 3 things to have an order. You know, like alphabetical doesn't count, you know, that kind of thing. I think you need 3, right? So if that one had says favour, don't care, oppose. Suppose that was the 3 answers, right? I'm in favour of it, I don't care, or I oppose. Wouldn't it now become ordinal? You see that there's got a direction to it. But if I said red and green, I guess there's 2 choices, but who's first and who's second? So I would consider that a kind of grey one. Now, you give somebody a grade, A, B, C, D, you know, that kind of thing, F. Ordinal or not? I see one. We agree on that? Okay, I agree. Don't prove me wrong here. No, we are correct. The height of men in inches. Well, it could be in feet or it could be in kilometers. Well, that'd be a weird person. Centimeters, right? That's more likely. Is it ordinal? I see somebody pointing at 3. Would you agree? Right. Would you agree that question is so silly you could have overthought it? The number of times people get a question wrong for overthinking it seems to happen much more than you didn't think deeply enough, right? The minute I saw height, hey, isn't it going to be, it's going to be quantitative right off the bat, right? If it said weight, I went straight into number 3 if that was the choice. So don't overthink it. If it's something obvious like that, what it looks like superficially is kind of what it is, right? Oh, here we've got the one that talks about continuous or not. Okay. Do you know how I called it continuous and discrete? It looks like they're going to just call it continuous and not continuous. I can live with that, right? So what I'm calling discrete, they're calling not continuous. Okay, let's look at our story. Body weight in pounds. We've covered this one. 1, 2, 3, or 4. What number are we going for? 2. We agree? I don't know, the way some of you are looking, it might be you can't see it. So I'll up it. Does that help any? Just making it a bit clearer, right? Continuous, since every value within the same interval is a possible response, right? Can you get in between? We've argued about that, right? The number of text messages sent in a day. 1, 2, 3, or 4 this time. I see number 1. It's not continuous, right? What I would call discrete. Now you say, wait a minute, there's another not continuous. Why do you know it's this one and not that one? Sometimes you have to read it a couple of times to get what they're getting at. It's not continuous since not every value within an interval is possible. That's the correct choice. Not continuous since every value within the same interval is a positive. In fact, isn't that the description of what continuous should be? Right, so you just have to read it to see which. We get time for, yeah, we get time for our last one. When do we finish officially? 24? 24, okay, so we'll get time for this and then a quick tidy up and we're out of here. Right, the number of colds somebody gets in a year. Continuous or not continuous? I'm seeing the same. Why is it not continuous? I agree with you. Why is it not continuous?
Because you can either have a cold or not have a cold.
Or you could have 3 colds or 4 colds if you're really unfortunate in a winter, right?
Or
But
that,
you can't,
yeah.
but you can't get 3.2 colds, right? It's the 2 consecutive numbers, but you can't get the one in anything in between. That's kind of how I test things, right? I say 3 or 4, could you get 3.2 of it? 3 colds, yep. 4 colds, yep. Can you get 3.2 colds? That makes it discrete. And everybody who's came, even if you came late, have you all made sure that you have, where am I going with this? That you've said hello, hi in the chat so I can give you your attendance. All done that. Okay, I'm going to say bye-bye and I'll see you all on Wednesday. And hopefully you'll have at least a start to the homework. We haven't really covered a lot, but you know, have a bash and see where you get to before you start getting a little confused.